have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? How about patriotism?
Our booster vaccine regimens work against Omicron.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
Will Joe Biden get fact-checked by social media? Will Dr. Fauci, does anybody trust him anymore? Will Google fire all their employees? All of those questions and the answers to everything in life. Just kidding. Coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live, my name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy in Earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. Today it is December 16th, the year of our Lord 2021. This is Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in on today, a Thursday, Little Friday, like to call it. Almost the weekend. Almost probably the busiest weekend of your year if you're like me and haven't done any Christmas shopping yet. But Joe Biden yesterday was in front of some Christmas trees and said some things that aren't true at all. And so I begged to ask the question, will he be fact-checked? Does anybody believe Tony Fauci anymore? I can't imagine that they do. What actually happened in Afghanistan? We missed that story yesterday, ran out of time to talk about it, want to talk about it today. Also, will Google fire all of their employees? So I want to get into this first. Will the president get fact-checked by social media? If you recall, we've talked about this several times on this show. Now, this is not a regurgitation of any information. This is brand new clips. But as you've seen countless times, social media continues to fact-check and censor conservative or right-leaning views, ideas, or quote-unquote stories. I remember the Hunter Biden story that happened right before the election. Everybody, that's not true. That's not really true. Social media has decided that is actually false. They locked the New York Post out of their Twitter account for 2 weeks. Turned out, yeah, that's all true. So the fact-checking world in Facebook and social media, Twitter, YouTube, all of that has gone nuts. There was a story out a couple days ago about Facebook fact-checking, and it's really just opinions of people. So there's that. But this is not that. This is the president of the United States saying something that contradicts his own CDC. So the question that I have is, will Joe Biden be fact-checked on social media? My guess is probably not. Listen to what the president said. And again, I will read verbatim from the CDC's website, which is exactly the opposite of what he said. Check this out.
And so everybody talks about freedom and not to have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? How about patriotism? How about making sure that you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal?
Okay, cool. So the president just said, well, what about being vaccinated? So you don't spread the disease to other people. Here's the thing. That's not true. By a lot. We've read from the CDC website, for the last couple months now we've been doing this show. The CDC states on their website, if you get the shot, you can still spread the virus. Yet, the president of the United States, President Joseph R. Biden, went on the TV or the internet, I'm not sure where this is from, came out and said, what's the problem? What's the big deal? Just get the shot. You're protecting other people. No, you're not, dude. You're not at all. That's not true. The CDC says it's not true. And just for good measure, I went back and checked again today. As of a couple minutes ago, the CDC website, again, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the federal government, which, remember, social media has said that we're going to use the CDC's information to fact check people to make sure they're telling you the truth. The CDC's website states this, verbatim exact quote. If you're fully vaccinated and become infected with the Delta variant, you can spread the virus to others. What the president, I'm probably going to replay this because I think people need to see this, and I'm asking the question, is social media going to fact check him? Because we're going to cut this down to a reel later on in the day, and it'll post up a clip about this. I guarantee you there's going to be one of those little CDC disclaimers. This is what the CDC says. Is that going to happen to the President of the United States? Okay, I want you to listen to that again. Let me read this again. If you're fully vaccinated, this is from the CD. Remember that the fact checkers of social media use the CDC. If you're fully vaccinated and become infected with the Delta variant, and again, Omicron, of course you can spread it there. It didn't go backwards. With the Delta variant, you can still spread the virus to others. If you're fully vaccinated, you can still spread the virus. So says the CDC. Now listen again to what the President of the United States said.
And so everybody talks about freedom and not to have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? So how about patriotism? How about making sure that you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal?
Cool. So that's not true, according to the CDC. Again, which Joe Biden oversees, which is just they're contradicting each other. I don't know if you know that that's not true. So again, is this surprising at all? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. Are you surprised by this? Joe Biden getting something factually wrong yet again? I'm not surprised at all. What I would like to know is if the CDC is the benchmark in which the Facebook fact checkers, the YouTube fact checkers, the Twitter fact checkers, all of your social media fact checkers, if the CDC is what they're using to base their fact checks on, I would imagine this clip from the President of the United States will have a fact check. So, what do you think? Do you think social media is going to fact check the president, even though he said something exactly opposite of the truth, willing or not? I don't know if he actually knows. I'm not going to say that he's willingly lying to people here. I think he might actually believe this, which is fine, but it's wrong, according to the CDC. So, will he get fact-checked? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's up to you, social media platforms, to see if that is going to be the case. Speaking of the Omicron variant, and I know you're probably listening to a lot of stuff. Actually, you know what? Let's get to this. I have a question for all of you people watching this show. Do you at all trust Dr. Fauci anymore? At the beginning of the pandemic, I thought he was a pretty reasonable guy. It seemed like he wanted to. All of his intentions were in the right place. I thought at the very beginning of this thing, I thought, cool, we've got somebody level-headed on this. Little did I know that Dr. Fauci would continue to lie to the American people constantly throughout the entire thing, and still does so to this day. There are so many things that we've covered already. I'm not going to dig back into all of that. The Lancet letter, the where the virus came from, the whole mask situation. Actually, we'll get into that in a little bit. But here's the question. Does anybody believe Dr. Fauci anymore? If you have friends, look, I know there are people out there, our liberal friends, our lefty friends that, again, you should stay friends with. There was a TPUSA report I watched yesterday that was conservatives are more tolerant than liberals in a lot of ways, and meaning that they probably have more liberal friends. So if you have liberal friends that need to see this sort of stuff, especially the back and forth with Dr. Fauci, click the little share, the little like button over here, the little share button over here. It helps us reach more people. Really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything. Actually, click the little emoji thing. If you're if this is hilarious to you, which maybe it is. If this makes you sad or mad, go ahead and let us know by clicking the little thingy there. But I'm just curious. Does anybody believe Dr. Fauci? He was on one of the talk shows yesterday and said this about Omicron. Again, well, let me just play this and we'll talk about it on the other side.
The early in vitro and clinical studies that I mentioned indicate that boosters reconstitute the antibody titers and enhance the vaccine protection against Omicron. And so finally, our booster vaccine regimens work against Omicron. At this point, there is no need for a variant-specific booster. And so the message remains clear. If you are unvaccinated, get vaccinated, and particularly in the arena of Omicron, if you are fully vaccinated, get your booster shot.
So So here's the thing with this particular Dr. Fauci clip. He seems emphatic. He seems, we now know everything we need to know about Omicron. And what we know is that another shot of the COVID shot is going to do the trick. We officially know that. Here's the thing. Dr. Fauci does not have a good track record at telling the truth or being impartial to the quote unquote science. Because there's this report out of Reuters. If you remember, Omicron started in South Africa. South Africa has more research, more experience with this than anybody else in the world. This is a report out of Reuters, a pretty straight shooting. Yeah, they've got a bias sometimes, but they're pretty straight shooters. Pfizer shot less effective in South Africa after Omicron emerges, studies show. So not what Dr. Fauci is saying. Again, he might be right in the future, but he's emphatically saying something that nobody knows yet. Again, he could turn out to be right, but being this emphatic about something makes me curious, especially with his track record of just flat out lying to people. Pfizer BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine has been less effective in South Africa at keeping people infected with the virus out of the hospital since the Omicron variant emerged last month. A real-world study published on Tuesday showed. Between November 15th and December 7th, people who received 2 doses of the shot had 70% chance of avoiding hospitalization, down from 93% during the previous waves of Delta infections, the study shows. So Dr. Fauci is emphatically stating something that he doesn't know anything about yet. And again, maybe he'll be right in the future, but here's the problem with Fauci. We're going to play a clip right now from way back at the beginning of the pandemic where Dr. Fauci was also emphatic. Oh, yeah, we absolutely know this. We 100% know that we don't need masks. Absolutely emphatic. And then turns out he was wrong. So Dr. Fauci being emphatic about something now makes me wonder, because he doesn't have a good track record of telling people the truth. Listen to this. Remember this clip?
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
So here's the reason why I wanted to play that. A bunch of emails show and testimony and all these different sorts of things make it clear that when Dr. Fauci said that about the masks, he already knew that he wasn't telling the truth to the American people. He came out later and said, well, I was saying that because we didn't want Americans buying those masks up because they needed them for PPE, because medical emergency staff needed them for PPE, which is fine. But you have to tell us that. Don't lie to us, because now we don't know if we can trust you, Dr. Fauci, and we haven't known for months. So when Dr. Fauci gets on the TV screen and says a 3rd shot or a 4th shot or a 5th shot or 900 shots later, how are we supposed to believe you? Because you have a terrible track record of completely misleading the American people on purpose because he thinks it benefits him. That's that. I just wanted to bring that whole mask thing up because it is not good. Cheryl said he's a movie star. Yeah, remember the Dr. Fauci movie that came out on Disney Plus? Received well by nobody. But that's that. I want to get to this. We missed this yesterday. I actually think this is super important. Remember Afghanistan? Remember what happened in Afghanistan with everything? I'm acting like it's one small event. No. The massive debacle that was the Afghanistan withdrawal that President Biden messed up a lot. If you remember, 3 days after the Kabul airport attack, which killed 13 U.S. service members, there was a targeted airstrike on a would-be, or supposedly at the time we thought would-be, terrorist that was plotting another attack. Turns out, after some pretty good investigating by the New York Times, believe it or not, they still do some good hard journalism. they found out that the U.S. military, instead of targeting a would-be terrorist, they targeted an innocent dude who worked for a U.S. nonprofit and killed him and a bunch of other kids. That was not a good story of what happened in Afghanistan regarding that. But we have a final, I guess, culmination. We talked about this way back when it was happening. And a lot of times these stories kind of, you don't get an ending to them. It just kind of, just kind of withers away. It's under investigation and nobody really hears the end of it. So the end of it was released this earlier this week. Remember, 10 civilians were killed in this U.S. airstrike. August 29th, they had an attack on the Kabul airport, and 3 days later, there was an airstrike on somebody that got misidentified as a terrorist plotting another attack. The Pentagon finally wrapped up their investigation, and guess what? Nobody's being held accountable. And if the New York Times hadn't uncovered this, I don't actually know if we would ever have known about it. But again, good journalism reporting from the New York Times. This was John Kirby from the Pentagon saying, what we saw here was a breakdown in process and execution in procedural events, not a result of negligence, not a result of misconduct, not a result of poor leadership. So there's that. It's kind of an anticlimactic culmination here, but the military is deciding that they're not responsible for this and nobody's going to be held responsible at all. There's a lot of variables that are going on in this particular attack that I think rest at the feet maybe of President Biden. If you remember the Afghanistan withdrawal, the optics were terrible. People hanging off planes, filling a bunch of people still there. A bunch of people still got left behind, and we're completely out, completely gone. Joe Biden messed this entire thing up terribly. And then you have the tragic bombing of those 13 service members in the Kabul airport, just outside the Kabul airport. This happens 3 days later. The military just sends in a targeted drone and blows up an innocent dude and his family. How much of this, I'm curious, and we'll never know because the investigation is now closed. It wasn't, the military says it wasn't due to negligence, it wasn't a result of misconduct, it wasn't a result of poor leadership. But how much of this was caused by Joe Biden saying, I need a win. I need a win right now. Let's go get somebody. Did that lead to rushed procedure in this attack on a U.S. attack on an innocent man and an innocent family that ended up killing 10 civilians in Afghanistan? We're never going to actually know. And also, what does not a result of negligence mean? It was what John Kirby said is, we have a breakdown in process and execution procedural events, not negligence, not a result of poor leadership. Well, what is the process then? If the process broke down, who's in charge of that? Again, is this a super exciting detail in this? Not really, but it kind of makes you wonder, would we have ever known about this? And two, how did this happen? Because what they're saying is it wasn't a lack of leadership, it wasn't negligence. But we'll never know if the pressure coming down from the administration because of the terrible optics they were getting caused a rushed decision and a bomb that hit 10 innocent people in Afghanistan. We're never actually going to know. And also, if this is not a breakdown in leadership, if this is perfect leadership, which was what it has to be, if the Pentagon is saying, well, no, this wasn't a leadership issue, they would de facto say that, well, this was good leadership. So are we, the American people, to believe that under good leadership, we might just accidentally kill 10 people in a drone strike? I don't know. Again, kind of just a sad end to the story. If anything else comes out about it, again, we might not have even known if the New York Times hadn't reported on it, but Joe Biden in Afghanistan, the military under Joe Biden's leadership is admitting no fault really in this process. So there's that. I'm going to get to this. Google to fire all unvaccinated employees. Actually, we'll use this chyron, but check this out. This kind of relates back to the Joe Biden social media thing. Actually, we're going to go through the Google story really quick. Google's going to fire all of its employees if they don't get the COVID shot. Google announced on Tuesday that they will give its employees until January 18th to get their vaccination against COVID-19 or apply for an exemption. The company's vaccine mandate became public on Tuesday, but the tech giant's employees notified internally earlier this month on December 3rd. If employees fail to provide proof of their vaccination by December 18th, they will be put on administrative leave for 30 days and unpaid personal leave for 6 months. If they do not provide proof of vaccination after 7 months time period, they will be fired. Google, a private company, they're allowed to do whatever they want to do. But here's the thing. It has to be about control, right, in Google. Because whether or not you agree with the political ideology of most of the people that work at Google, they're not dumb people. The people that work at Google are very, very smart. And people who are very, very smart don't get the wool pulled over their eyes very easily. So I would imagine that given all of the reporting coming out over the Delta variant, over the Omicron variant, and the fact that getting vaccinated doesn't actually protect other people, it just protects you, which is fine, given the fact that we all know that. And I would imagine the people at Google also know that, the employees there. So given the fact that they're going to fire everybody because they didn't get the shot that doesn't help anybody but them personally, doesn't it have to be about control? Doesn't it have to be the Google leadership saying that we want to be able to know that we can control our employees as much as we possibly can? Isn't that what it has to be about? I want to go back to this story, the will social media fact check Joe Biden. We played this clip in the beginning, and I would imagine that they won't, but I also got to bring up this story. Cornell University cases has 900 new cases of mostly Omicron variant in mostly fully vaccinated people. If you missed this story, this is interesting. Again, let me play this clip from Joe Biden again so we can kind of reset how this works. Remember, getting the shot does not protect other people, just protects you. Watch this from the president.
And so everybody talks about freedom and not to have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? So how about patriotism? How about making sure that you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal?
Cool. So that's the president saying wrong things. And again, not like opinion wrong, not, well, I think this and you think this. No. The CDC, as we read earlier in the show, does not agree with what the president just said. And will he be fact-checked by the social media platforms? Probably not. But I wanted to use that as this. To lead into this, Cornell University reported 903 cases of COVID-19 among students between December 7th and December 13th, and a very high percentage of them are the Omicron variant in fully vaccinated individuals, according to university officials. So a school, Cornell, which boasts a 97% vaccination rate, had 900 cases, most of them in fully vaccinated people who are spreading it, again, according to the CDC. I wanted to bring up that Joe Biden clip just so I can reference that, in that the president is saying wrong things. If you get the shot, which this is not an anti-shot show, you should get the shot. If you want to get the shot, go ahead and get the shot. If you have comorbidities, if you're overweight or old, probably a good idea to get the shot. But at the same time, it doesn't protect other people. You getting the shot is not something that you're doing for the greater good. Again, according to the CDC, I'm not saying this. The CDC says that if you get the shot, you can still spread it. Yet Joe Biden is saying the complete opposite of that. So that's that. Let me see if there's anything else to bring you. Just a little bit more. The virtually every case of the Omicron variant to date has been found in fully vaccinated students, a portion of whom have also received a booster, said the vice president of the university. At Cornell, a majority, is it a majority? Does he say majority? Oh, virtually every. So not even at Cornell University, the university vice president of university relations says that virtually every single case of Omicron has been found in students who are fully vaccinated and some students who have gotten a booster shot. Now, remember, if you're 22 years old, your risk to this thing is beyond minimal. But even if you get the shot and you get a booster shot, you still can get it and you still can spread it, according to probably super woke Cornell. But will the president get fact-checked on that? Probably not. Let me see if there's any other stories that I had brought up that we still could look at. And let me see if we can read some comments. This is, I cannot confirm this, but Lisa says, yes, it's more dangerous to be around the vaccinated. I don't actually know that, and I probably doubt that, but it is an interesting point that Bud said Biden doesn't know what patriotism is. He is a communist. I cannot condone that he is a communist. I don't actually know that for a fact, but the whole being a patriot thing, yeah, not true at all, because the CDC themselves said that you can still spread it. I sound like a broken record here. Let me see if there's anything else in the comments that we can read. That's going to do it for us today for the most part. We'll be right back here tomorrow with, actually, we'll be live from Arizona. We're going to the TPUSA America Fest. So if you're in Phoenix and you happen to be at the TPUSA America Fest, say hi to me. Flag me down. I'm generally wearing something pretty flamboyant. You can spot me pretty easily. But I'll be there over the weekend, chatting up some young freedom lovers in Phoenix, Arizona. Again, if you're there and you're around the area, come say hi. I would love to chat and see what's going on with you in your life and around everyday America. But that's going to do it for us. We'll be live from the hotel room tomorrow. We'll see you then. God bless America.